And for more analysis, I spoke to Jeffrey Colgan. He's assistant professor at the School of International Service at American University. I asked him if the 45% drop in Iran's oil revenue was the desired target of these sanctions.
Well, I think this is big news. In terms of the effect, it's much larger than we previously knew and previously expected, right? So the main goals of the sanctions are, one, to make, put pressure on Iran and make them come to the bargaining table on the nuclear question. But also, secondly, is to make sure that Israel is not attacking Iran militarily.
You've got a book coming out, Petro-Aggression, one of the chapters dealing with Iran. What can we learn? What have you learned? And what can you give our audience in terms of what we should know about that country, that leadership?
Well, because it has this revolutionary background, the combination of oil income and revolutionary governments tends to historically make for very aggressive foreign policies. So that's something that we should be worried about in Iran's case. Hopefully we can learn how to deal with these countries in a better way.
There are those who complain about sanctions, though, that the governments tend not to feel the heat. It's the citizens. In this case, is that the case, or?
That's right. Historically, sanctions have not always been terribly effective, and often the burden has fallen on the poorest and most vulnerable members of the countries. But in this case, the news that we're getting just in the last 48 hours is that the impact, economic impact of the sanctions seems to be much larger than we had anticipated, and it's emboldening the United States even to make new steps to broaden those sanctions just in the last week or so.
Let's talk about that, because this got bipartisan support in Congress, which right there, that's a headline. That never seems to happen. The president signed it. This it was described by one as really tightening the economic noose on Iran. Can you get into detail about how this is going to be effective and why it might be effective?
Right. So one of the things that the U.S. is trying to do is to broaden it to all kinds of sectors, right? So the sanctions should affect many of the sectors in Iran's economy. And historically, the historical context is really important in this case. The supreme leader of Iran likes to liken the current sanctions back to a resistance economy that Iran had during the Iran-Iraq War. But one key difference between now and then is that during the Iran-Iraq War, Iran continued to export a lot of oil and managed to fund its economy in that way, except for about an 8-month period around 1981 where its oil exports dropped considerably and the country almost went bankrupt. I mean, it was really in difficult, dire economic straits. And I don't want to say that today's sanctions are the same, they're that severe, but they're moving in that direction where they're starting to pose a real threat towards Iran's economy.
The objective, drive them to the bargaining table, really focus in on this nuclear issue. Is it going to be effective? What's the best case scenario in your estimation?
So there's no question that the economic pain has been greater than the U.S. might have reasonably been able to expect, so that's a big win. But whether that translates to political action at the negotiating table, that's still very much uncertain, and it's not clear that either side is willing to back down, at least at this point.